If you ask any Aussie gearhead, did Holden ever build a Statesman Coupe, then all tell you the same thing. The Monaro was a two-door coupe and the Statesman was a luxury barge. Right, well, actually wrong. Holden did make a Statesman Coupe. In fact, they would go on to build 3 of them. However, if you went down to your local Holden dealer in 1974 with a checkbook full of cash, you wouldn't be able to buy one. You couldn't even order one. These were top secret factory built unicorns, made exclusively for one man, Holden's managing director at that time. So let's take a look at the unbelievable story of the 1974 Holden HJ Statesman Coupe. A car that officially never existed, was built on a corporate whim and then hidden away for decades. This story involves 3 parts, a Ford executive and 2 cars. The first of these being the Statesman, so let's dig in. Holden established it as a distinct luxury marque in 1971 to rival Ford Australia's highly profitable Fairlane. Built on the longer station wagon platform, the Statesman sedans featured a 114-inch wheelbase, which added 3 inches behind the rear doors, giving a far superior rear legroom. It also featured a new and exclusive high-class front and rear styling, along with a more luxurious interior. To project its prestige, Holden deliberately scrubbed the Holden title from early marketing, promoting the models purely under the Statesman banner. The Statesman would go on to be released in a number of generations, but here I'll be looking at the HJ, which was released in October 1974. Holden replaced the original series with a HJ but retained the DeVille and introduced a new top tier flagship, the Statesman Caprice. Did you know Statesman DeVille and Caprice were both sold in South Africa as the AQ and later AJ, Chevrolet Constantia sedan and Caprice Classic respectively? The base custom model was dropped and the 5 litre or 308 V8 became the sole engine choice. The car was aimed squarely at Ford's LTD, with the Caprice becoming Holden's most luxurious Australian offering. Standard amenities included air conditioning, leather seats, power windows, electric locks and, believe it or not, 13 interior lights. Its exterior featured a unique grille, Cadillac-style bumper overriders, fluted hubcaps. This brand proved to be so popular, its production would run for 14 years, concluding in January 1985 with a final assembly of a WB series. Then we have the Monaro. Holden introduced its iconic 2-door Pillarless hardtop coupe in July 1968. Initially released as a HK series, and at launch buyers could choose from 3 distinct models: the standard base coupe, the sporty GTS and the flagship GTS 327, which used a Chevy 327 V8. In 1968, and driven by Bruce McPhee and Barry Mulholland, an HK Monaro GTS 327 would go on to win Bathurst, marking Holden's first ever victory at a great race. Then, in 1969, another Monaro would claim victory at Bathurst, this time a HT GTS 350, driven by Colin Bond and Tony Roberts, and powered by another imported Chevy V8, but this time a 350. Then in July 1971, Holden would release the HQ series, introducing a completely restyled design, featuring larger rear glass, squarer quarter windows and bumper integrated rectangular tail lights. The HQ would be offered in 4 models: the base, the LS or luxury model, GTS and the muscle of the family, the GTS 350. Interestingly, the Night Rider Stolen Main Force Patrol or MFP Pursuit Special from Mad Max was actually a 1972 base HQ coupe, bought from a couple who had owned it from new. After Night Rider, the rogue biker, and his partner stole the Monaro, they triggered a high-speed chase that drew elite cop Max Rokantansky, or Mad Max, into the fray. This resulted in a fatal collision that would spark the entire Mad Max story, a film I've seen a number of times and one which ultimately and initially sparked my enduring interest in your cars. In 1973, Holden would introduce a 4-door GTS sedan, and to distinguish it from standard sedans, it received contrasting bonnet and boot lid paint outs. By 1974, the specific 350 badging was replaced by generic V8 badges. The manual GTS 350 was dropped and the automatic 350 was discontinued shortly after that. Then, in October 1974, Holden released the HJ series, which brought a square Monte Carlo inspired front end and a full lineup rationalisation, while the HJ Monaro GTS range lost the factory body paint outs. It was the first time a Monaro could be ordered with optional front and rear spoilers. During this time, the base Monaro Coupe and the 350 Chevy V8 were permanently dropped. The GTS Coupe and Sedan continued using the 253 V8 as standard, with the 308 as an option, leaving the LS Coupe as a luxury variant which kept its 3.3 litre 6-cylinder as its base engine. It would be the Monaro LS Coupe that would go on to merge with its sibling the Statesman to create the car in question. But before we get into that, there's someone we need to look at, and that person is another Max, but this time Max Wilson, who was also a fascinating bloke in his own right. Born in Nebraska in 1922, he would become a decorated World War II B-17 bomber pilot. At just 22 years old, his plane was shot down over Europe, forcing him to crash land in Switzerland. This is where he was placed in an internment camp and subsequently escaped, made it back to his squadron and returned to duty. After the war, he finished his engineering degree and then joined GM as a service engineer in 1946. He climbed the ranks across Denmark and South Africa before becoming managing director of Holden in 1966. When Max Wilson took the helm at Holden, he brought with him a Detroit boss mindset by introducing American-style option sheets to Australian buyers. And it was while running Holden, Wilson championed the iconic HK range, spearheading the launch of icons like the Monaro and the Braum, alongside the HB Tirana. He would continue rising through the ranks at GM and going on to become managing director of the entire Asia Pacific region in 1968. Despite his promotion, he would still spend a great deal of his time in Australia, simply because he needed a ride and knew just where to find one, which we will find out more about very shortly. You see, being a senior executive at a massive car company does have its perks: big corner office, corporate expense accounts, and most importantly, the ability to tell the factory floor what you want. We've seen it all before with Gianni Agnelli, affectionately known as the lawyer, the iconic Italian industrialist and principal shareholder of Fiat, who had a custom Fiat 130 station wagon built. Then there was Henry IV II, who had a bespoke 1965 Ford Mustang convertible custom built by Ford's Design Centre, specifically for his personal use while travelling in France to oversee Ford's assault on the 24 Hours of Le Mans, plus Ford's boss Bill Perk, who while in Australia famously ordered a custom XW Falcon GT that practically birthed the legendary GTHO, which is another story and one for a future video. You see, in the 70s, luxury coupes were all the rage in America, with local rivals jumping on this trend. Chrysler had the Chrysler by Chrysler hardtop, and Ford had the Landau. Now, Max Wilson was a man with a taste for Cadillacs, yet a distinct aversion to traditional formal sedans, favouring two doors and, more importantly, the coupes. Wilson's preferences were already well established, having previously commissioned a 400 cubic inch Oldsmobile powered HQ Monaro LS in Contessa Gold with a sunroof, a rarity at that time. So by 1974, and with an appetite for uniquely styled luxury coupes, he sought something truly distinct for his latest Aussie stint, a car that combined ultimate luxury with two doors. He went straight to Holden's director of design, the legendary Leo Prannou, with a challenge to make a Statesman Coupe. Safe to say, Max wasn't the kind of guy who took no for an answer, because a true long wheelbase two-door platform didn't exist. Pranou's design team didn't revise the Statesman. Instead, they took the opposite approach. They Statesmanised a factory Holden Monaro LS Coupe. So in October 1974, a fresh HJ Monaro LS rolled off the line at the Elizabeth plant in South Australia and was immediately whisked away to Holden's experimental design studio at Fisherman's Bend in Victoria. Because of Holden's modular body design back then, it was actually quite possible, if you had a factory master craftsman on your side, to make a number of adaptations to this modular body design. Pranou's team got to work. They pulled off the Monaro front end and slapped on the long square imposing front guards, bonnet and grille from the top spec Statesman Caprice. At the back they added a modified Statesman boot with its distinctive squared off centre E-crown. Leo Pranou stated,
"The design as well as all the modifications to the car were carried out entirely by and within Holden's design department Technical Center in Fisherman's Bend, Victoria."
Now, let's take a look at the car. The Statesman Coupe was powered by Holden's L31 308 cubic inch or 5 litre V8 and used a Rochester Quadrajet 4-barrel carburettor with a compression ratio of 9.7 to 1, giving 240 horsepower and a top speed of around 114 miles per hour. This was paired with an M41 Turbo Hydromatic 400 or TH400 3-speed automatic transmission. However, its top speed was probably a little lower than the LS Coupes due to the weight of all the added luxury accessories. This model would retain the standard Monaro LS wheelbase of 111 inches, its running gear using a 278 to 1 rear end. The interior was converted to mirror the flagship Statesman Caprice. It featured a distinct sienna colour scheme, colour code 99960X. It was extensively upgraded by the design studio, receiving a high-end mix of sienna leather, vinyl and plush velour trim across its armrests, centre console, headlining and door cards. And just like its big brother, it received Statesman shields on its door cards. It was also fitted with high back bucket seats, trimmed in sienna velour facing and vinyl exteriors. Up front it featured a leather-topped Monaro dash fitted with a genuine full Statesman Caprice instrument cluster with wood grain trim inserts, a Caprice reverse twin-spoke steering wheel with wood inlay and T-bar automatic selector, also surrounded by wood inlays. It received deep pile Statesman Caprice carpet, also finished in sienna. Other convenience features included fully functioning factory installed air conditioning and a radio cassette system. Externally, the car was finished in sienna metallic, colour code 5671453. A custom shade applied that wouldn't be commercially released on any other Holden until 1976. The styling cleverly paired the sweeping two-door profile of the Monaro LS with the bold, upright, luxury aesthetic of the HJ Statesman Caprice. It was modified using Statesman front guards, front bonnet, grille, plus a quad headlight treatment of the HJ Statesman Caprice. This was combined with colour-matched sienna Statesman Caprice wheel covers over its 5 JJ by 14 steel wheels. The rear featured a HJ Statesman Caprice boot lid, distinguished by its squared-off central crown, fitted and adjusted to the Monaro body shape. It was also fitted with a matching sienna vinyl roof and factory slide-back sunroof with internal sienna leather padding. The vehicle wore genuine Statesman Caprice insignia throughout, with the Statesman Caprice mark on the rear boot lid, driver's side, with central Statesman shield. Statesman shields were placed on the sail panels, and it also received a Statesman shield bonnet ornament. This was all complemented by custom gold pinstriping, which was carefully tailored to follow the Monaro Statesman distinct body lines running around the boot and bonnet. Holden actually quietly showed this car at the 1975 Melbourne and Sydney International Motor Shows just to flex what their design studio could do. Created a massive stir among enthusiasts who wondered if a luxury two-door flagship was heading to the showrooms, but it was never meant for mass production. The Statesman Coupe remained strictly a corporate executive perk, and after Max Wilson spent less than a year driving it and putting a mere 500 kilometres on the clock, the car was released into the full dealer network. It was quickly snapped up by Sutton Motors and shipped off to them in Homebush, Sydney, New South Wales. It was then sold to a private owner in nearby Strathfield in 1976. Remarkably, it remained in the care of the same family for nearly 50 years, who took the odometer from just 500 kilometres when purchased to a reading of just over 20,000 kilometres. It was registered annually until 1994, driven sparingly and kept in a garage as an absolute time capsule, and subsequently survived as an ultra rare piece of Australian automotive history. Following the success of the first car, Pranou oversaw the construction of a second Statesman Coupe for Wilson in 1975, which was believed to feature HX updates, and then a third in 1976. While the first car is well documented and has traded hands among collectors, the whereabouts of the subsequent builds remains largely shrouded in mystery. One is rumoured to be hiding somewhere in Victoria, and the third has completely gone off grid. That makes the surviving specific Sienna Statesman Monaro one of only 2 known surviving factory Statesman Coupes on the earth. Funnily, if you take a look at this car, it has a very similar look and style to the luxury Monaro with no name, or the HX LE. I wonder, could this have been its precursor? As always, if any of you guys have any other interesting facts or details about this one-off, could you let me know in the comments, which will be greatly appreciated. What makes this car so iconic isn't just that it's rare, it's that it represents the ultimate what if in Australian automotive history. What if Holden had taken on a Ford Landau head to head with a production Statesman Coupe? Could it have saved the 2-door body style for Holden in the late 1970s? We'll never know. What we do know is that thanks to a bomber pilot turned Holden boss who refused to drive a standard car, we got one of the most magnificent custom Holdens ever built. If you had the keys to one of these, one of the 3 factory specials, would you drive it every day, or would you lock it up in a museum? Let me know in the comments below. That's it for now, and catch you in the next one.